So therefore, it's very important to remember it is our emotional reaction to whatever happens to us that's going to bring us suffering or bring us peace. If we learn how to tame our emotional reaction, it will bring us more peace and more comfort and more contentment. But if we allow it to hurt us and we react to it, it will bring us suffering. So emotions are very key to the whole aspect of suffering. We suffer because we are emotionally reacting. And the Buddha went on to even say this in the Citta Sutra. Now, at this point, I want to point out something very important. The Buddha used two words to describe mental processes. Citta to mean the emotional mind, and Mano to mean the thinking mind, the conscious thinking, rational mind. But unfortunately, whenever these two words appear, many translators simply translate it as mind, without separating whether the Buddha was talking about emotions or the Buddha was talking about the cognition, the thinking. So here, in this particular sutra, the Buddha was really talking about emotions. And this is a translation from my teacher, Venerable Dr. Punaji. He says, emotions dominate the world. Emotions create distress. Emotion is that one thing to which all are spellbound, because Buddha used the word citta. This is really referring to emotion. So it's very important now to understand that this aspect of the mind we have to be aware of. So what did the Buddha talk about when he refers to the mind? The Buddha was very specific. Whenever he referred to the mind, he was using the word citta or the word mano. In fact, he described the mind to have actually three kinds of activity going on. But there are two processes, right? Two things that lead to thoughts, and that is either we have emotional mind where thoughts are arising, or we have a conscious rational mind where we are creating the thoughts. We are conscious of the thoughts. So the Buddha described the mind as an activity. And this is where many people have maybe find it difficult to understand, because they think of the mind as an entity, not an activity. An entity is something that exists, like this computer mouse. It is an entity. I can feel it, I can touch it, I can hold it. But the mind is an activity. It's ongoing. The activity arises because of this electrochemical activity of brain cells. So electrochemical activity of brain cells is all activity, and it is this activity that leads to the state of consciousness called mind. Therefore, the mind doesn't exist. You cannot take the mind and say, this is the mind. And this is also quite common when we ask a lot of people, where is your mind? And most people point up there. But that is not the mind, that is your brain. The activity of the brain gives rise to what we call mind. So mind is really an activity, and the only way we can observe, we can know there is an activity is experiencing it. And that is the mental experience we're having. So the Buddha pointed out that mind as an activity of the body, there are three parts of this mental experience. The Buddha didn't say it's the brain. It's about activity of the body, because mental activity is not just confined 100% to the brain. There is also the central nervous system, the spinal cord, and our sense organs. All these are in the peripheral nervous system. So it's not just only inside the brain, but also our sense organs. So the Buddha described that the mind is made of three parts of mental experience. The first one he calls Viññāna, which is perception. And that is what we perceive through our sense organs. And this is arising because of the five aggregates, the pancakanda. So it leads us to have a perception of something we've seen, heard, smelled, taste, or touch. So this is an experience of the environment. And then we begin to interpret it, and that is the mano part, the thinking mind. And you can call this the cognitive process. It leads to cognition and conception. Cognition is to be able to be aware and conscious of something, and conception is to give it some meaning, concept, creating a concept. So it's basically categorized interpretation of our perception and giving meaning to what was perceived. What we have perceived is called rūpa. The meaning we give to it is in the form of a name, a label, and that is called nāma. And that's where nāma, rūpa comes about. We perceive something in the mind, and then that is the rūpa. And then we give it a name, a label, a meaning, that is the nāma. So nāma rūpa. And then the next process is citta, the affective process. Psychologists would call this affective process. This is really commonly called emotions, but this is really leading to mood and temperament. So it's basically the emotional reaction to either a pleasant or unpleasant feeling. And this leads to mood or temperament. This is our emotional excitement. We become excited and we react to it because of citta. And at the same time, what citta will also do is we personalize experience. And this personalization leads to the notion there is a self-centered existence. And this process goes on continuously, unconsciously, but it's happening all the time. If you knock your hand against the wall and you feel the pain, what are you thinking? The thought is, I feel the pain. What's the first word? I. Right? Or you kick something on the door and then it hurts. And then you say, my toe hurts. What's the first word? My. You see, the I, me, or mine automatically arises whenever we experience something in the body. And because of that, we begin to personalize this body and think that this body is me. I am this body. Right? So this is really the process of personalizing that experience.